Hi, it's Brian here. Welcome back again. It is another episode here at the Expert Dojo Incubator. We are totally focused today on driving growth and scalability. This time around, the company I'm going to introduce you to are in the children's space, changing the world and doing beautiful things. And we're going to talk about how we're going to scale a company that is doing phenomenal things in a really, really quick way. Patrina from YouROK, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So tell me what the genesis of the idea was. When did you suddenly reach a moment where you said, I need to bring this product to the world?
Well, my son was diagnosed with some mental health issues at the age of 3, and that started our journey as a family to explore the mental health care system, especially for children. And what we saw is that there's not a lot of competent therapists, especially because he has some of the more difficult things to deal with. And he would stump the therapists basically. And eventually it got to the point where he was considered too complex. And we were told the only answer for him was a residential treatment center, which we decided not to pursue. But over the course of his school years leading up to college, we met with a variety of therapists. Some were helpful, some were not. And we eventually, largely because I changed how I started parenting him, were able to help overcome his challenges. And now he is a thriving college student having a grand time.
Incredible. And what I really like, and we're going to go into the product in a moment, but what I really like about it, of course, the name of the company is YouROK. But even a moment ago when you or I was speaking, I always think of it in the other way as well, which is so nice, which is you are okay, right? Because you're turning a world of where children grow up believing they're not okay. And actually, it's very difficult and it's very hard. And they face so many more complications than you and I faced when we were growing up. It was very simple when we grew up, right? There was no real social media. We'd hang with our friends. If somebody was mean to us, it was one person. And we just had to go to a different field, a different place. And even if we were stuck in the same school, we knew we'd move to a new school at some stage in the future. So we get to move on. While in the world today with social media, it is a grueling and just incredibly mean and tough environment that they're growing up with. And it's one that we don't really understand. So I'm sure that as you were looking at how do I make YouROK the most impactful possible solution for an entire generation of people who desperately need help from outside, I'm sure you were also looking at every single other thing they're looking at is poisonous towards them, and this needs to make a huge benefit. Talk to me about the process, about how you built this up and where you came up with the technology and like what your mindset was as you were building it.
Well, first, I'd like to suggest that when we were growing up, it wasn't quite as hunky-dory and lovely as you might have allowed. In my own family, there's a family of origin issues, and the approach then was to sweep everything underneath the rug and not deal with it. And then we became adults and we had children of our own, and we passed all that stuff along. I think what's different now, and in fact, I think that's what social media has in some ways enabled, is that there's more sharing. And we've slowly steadily gotten to a place where it's okay to talk about not being okay. And we wanted to create a platform that allowed kids to, that I wouldn't not allow, well, allowed them to share how they're really feeling in a very safe way, with anonymous peer support so that they could get those difficult emotions out. But most of all, we wanted to say, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You are okay. And we'll help you feel even better. We'll help you become your very best self by teaching you the skills to build your emotional resiliency and process big emotions so that they don't stick around to make your life more challenging as you grow up.
And what were some of the challenges when you were building the platform? because it's very hard to replicate social engagement, right? And most of the platforms that are there right now are social media platforms, which means the only real objective of the majority of social media platforms is to amplify. And a lot of what does get amplified, they don't really reflect the real world or what people are thinking or feeling or anything else. They just amplify how we would like people to think of us. Well, where you've gone to is a place of an entirely decentralized network whereby kids are helping kids and you have an environment of total support, which is one of the most beautiful things that you can possibly build. But talk me through how you replicated the way that these kids would socially interact with each other, not just offline, but also in the digital world as well, and how you brought that to YouROK.
Well, someone once described us as the antisocial network, and that's because as we were designing the product, we were studying solutions out there that had gotten into trouble by creating too easy a situation for kids to recognize who was sharing something that wasn't good in their life and then ostracize or bully them further. So we intentionally create an anonymous username for users. So whatever they log in as their username, and my son, well, I shouldn't say my son's actually, but he has the very funny username. He's automatically generated a new username that keeps him anonymous. There's no avatars and no photos, so there's no imagery to identify anyone. And we've had community managers monitor what kids share, as well as technology-driven tools for extracting inappropriate comments. So it protects the kids from stupid stuff. And also the ability of the users to report someone who's annoying them. So all of those things together have combined to create a very emotionally safe place for kids to share. And what they're sharing is frightening. They are dealing with so many hard issues with their peers, their parents, and other aspects of their lives. And we've created a safe space for them to start to get that off their chest and release that. And that in and of itself is a form of an intervention, just to start to share how they really feel and articulate those emotions.
Wonderful. And I love how you brought gamification into it. Talk to me about that process.
Well, at the time that we were developing this, my son was hitting the early years of puberty, and he's almost an extreme gamer. And it was clear that, I mean, this is the digital native generation. We have got to find them where they live. And they live with their computer games, their platformer games, and their mobile device games. And so we worked with an award-winning game designer to take the interventions that are evidence-based and turn them into a really fun activity that kids feel better using. And so it really, I mean, we've been told, including by the American Psychiatry Association, who awarded us the Impact Award, that we've really cracked the nut. We have found how to reach kids in a way that pulls them in, keeps them engaged, and then also the peer support is it creates some of the stickiness of what we offer, because it's just a really safe place to go and have fun and share what's going on in their lives.
Incredible. And how did you build a team around you to be able to put the platform together? Because and maybe if you could share a little bit about your background for our listeners as well.
Well, let me start with me. I have several decades of experience working with Fortune 50 companies down to the earliest stage startups to help them find product market fit and understand what drives consumer behavior or business behavior to adopt and fully utilize the solution. And that's how I've made my mark in my professional life and brought all of that insight and experience to designing what the solution should do, and also looking for folks who can join our team. So we've used a mix, as any startup does, we've used a mix of outsourced developers like our award-winning game design firm that we brought in to do the original concept and execution of version 1 of our app. We're now on version 2. And since then, we've just really through virtual connections, been able to bring in talent who are expert game designers who understand like child welfare and the challenges there, worked with psychiatrists, social workers, and general, sort of marriage family therapists to really continue to inform our content and how we communicate to kids. Because one of the most important things that I think makes us so appealing is we validate kids. There's a huge tendency to say, oh, just get over it. And we're saying, no, we feel really bad that you're feeling that way. And it's reasonable for you to feel that way. That sounds awful. And here's maybe why you're feeling that way, and help explain what they're going through in a kid-friendly approach instead of their Dr. Google searches that may or may not be productive for them. And then with that, we then give them some tips and tools to go solve these issues on themselves. But collectively, these experts who have weighed in and provided input, either in an advisory role, we have 2 leading experts in artificial intelligence who help design our algorithms so that we can measure the emotional well-being of the kids using the app and see who's at risk. We've had a great advisory board. We've had great team members working with us to just bring all of this together in this little package.
Incredible. And how long has it taken you to build this?
Well, we have started out slow because this was something I started bootstrapping while I was continuing to run my management company. And it's just been since COVID hit that we've all really been much more full time on the project, because the crisis is so real and so scary for what kids are going through. We just wanted to hurry up and get it out there faster and get it into the hands of kids.
And what have you found? Because it's true, like we've never faced a mental health crisis like we face today. Sometimes I wonder if maybe, to your point at the beginning of the podcast, that people didn't really talk about it. But I do see so many worried parents out there about what's happening inside their children's minds and the challenges and the complications that they face, that certainly in all of my time, I've never had more urgency in believing that we need to somehow intervene with this and make sure there's a support network in place. Do you believe it's getting worse, or you believe it's just becoming more visible?
I think it's actually both. The global pandemic, the global trauma that all families have faced as we've been dealing with shelter in place and all the fears that are brought about by a health crisis like this, kind of leveled the playing field in a way, or did a level set, maybe is a better way to put it, where you didn't have to be embarrassed that you felt anxious or depressed, because everybody was anxious
Right.
and depressed. But I think this has been a long-standing problem, and I think COVID made it even worse. But we now feel okay talking about it, or at least better talking about it.
Wonderful. So if we go through the hero's life cycle, you obviously it was a very personal problem for you. You then took it and decided to build a solution that reflected not just your own son, but everybody out there who's like your own son, who wants to have a support network in place. You then spent the time gamifying it so that it really lived in their world, to your point. And then you took yourself to the area whereby you can start bringing it out to market. Take us through the stage now where product's ready, you take it out to market, you start speaking to schools, you start speaking to local authorities, you start speaking to kids themselves. How has that growth been? And talk to us about some of the wins that you've had.
Well, let me start first by saying that after we had version 1 of the product built, we immediately went to market, and we advertised on social media sites, basically saying, here's a solution to help you become your best self. We never advertised that we are an anxiety solution or a depression solution or a self-harm solution, although we did attract kids who were suffering from all of those mental health challenges. And they self-selected, and we actually were able to get our paid advertising down to $2 a download. And by that, I don't mean $2 a click. I mean $2 an actual download and account creation. So I think that the creativity of our game design firm and the artwork that is in the app, which appeals to kids from 9 to 19, really was effective. A messaging that was aspirational and not, let's help you recover from depression, but instead, let's help you be your best self, really draws kids in, because that's what they're searching for. They don't want to feel bad. And with that success, which we were able to measure in a 2,800 user trial, well, pilot is a better way to say it, we were able to determine that after 10 uses, there was a statistically significant improvement in their MIOK score. So we knew the kids were getting better. Anecdotally, from market research, they were telling us they were getting better. And my favorite quote of all, which was really in an unsolicited field in the survey, was, I think every middle schooler and high schooler should be using this app. I've been feeling so much better since I started using it. So, but then what we recognized is because we are seeing kids who are starting to be symptomatic of mental health concerns, that we would do really well to partner with others where we could fit into the continuum of care. And thanks to attending a mental health conference and meeting the population health manager for a major insurance company, we were introduced to our first paid customer, the 8th largest school district in the US. And I think it's a testament to the creativity of the game and the visuals and all of that, that before they got their official invite, we had over a dozen kids downloading the app and using it, as opposed to waiting for the official invite so we could associate them with their account. But we've now enabled an organization that provides healthcare and mental health services to this school district with a tool to measure which kids are at risk so they can quickly intervene and catch them before something more tragic happens.
Incredible. And then, so how are you going to grow it from there? You've got the schools engaged, you've got the local districts engaged, you've got the kids engaged. Talk to the investors listening who are at a stage where they're saying, okay, you're raising a certain amount of money now, which you're going to share with all of the investors. That money is going to be used to do very specific things to the app and to the growth, which you're going to share with investors as well. But if you look at 2022 and 2023, even afterwards, what do you hope the year is going to look like based on your current realities?
Well, first, let me say, we're so worried about this crisis that we're changing up our roadmap, and we're doubling down on reaching kids through their parents, because we can't wait there's a sensible logistical lead time to bring in an enterprise customer like a school or healthcare provider, and we can't wait. So we have a parent solution that's nearly ready for launch, and we're speeding up that process to go
Wonderful.
direct to parents so they can get something in the hands of their kids right away while we wait for the schools to play catch up.
Incredible. So speak to me in terms of numbers as to how you think that's going to go. I won't hold you to it, but are you going to look for, because the B2C play, the business to consumer play directly to parents or directly to kids themselves is also a wonderful angle for going to market and growing your users, because they're going to want this. Like the app says, and I love how you're saying is, you are okay. Are you okay? Like everything is about, like we don't have to be wonderful every day. Like it's not a TV show, but we don't want to be terrible every day. We need to be okay. If okay is our baseline from where we start from, you're going to have a good day, right? So I love that you're focusing on, I love that you have a score around are you okay? But how do we do that then? How do we make sure, and how much of the funding that you're raising is going to be directed towards the marketing that's going to be needed to get out to these kids directly, to their parents, and then also the schools and the institutions that they live and play in?
Well, maybe the best way to explain it is, we think the urgency with parents who are just so fearful for their child or children, having lived through this pandemic, that there's great urgency there. It's a much more frictionless sale because you can go direct to consumer. So we're actually preparing right now an advertising campaign that will start to collect email addresses of parents who want the solution when it becomes available, and we expect to launch it within a couple of months. So it won't be a long wait to get access to the app and go direct to them. And then one of the strategies that we have to get more parents involved is to encourage their PTAs to support the program and use it as a revenue sharing opportunity to raise funds for PTA programs. And we think that with parents seeing the impact that the app has on their children, that they'll actually start to be our champions within school districts to reduce the friction to getting into larger enterprise customers.
I think that once you nail the B2C market properly, I think the health associations will take you on board. I think the Kaisers and all of their friends in this world will find it impossible not to provide very direct access to support, which just makes parents and children's lives an awful lot better. And then, so how is the rate? How much are you raising right now, and what's that money going to be spent on?
We're looking to raise 500,000 at this juncture, and this is largely to really sort of support the stability of the team, to continue our product development, and then really just scaling up in revenue to use on paid advertising and other marketing programs that will help drive demand and grow our customer numbers.
Fantastic. And then I'm guessing within a relatively short period of time, you're going to go hardcore, probably 1.5 to a 3 million raise, of which the majority of that is going to be spent on awareness and marketing.
Right, exactly.
Perfect. And then as you go, are you attacking the entire United States? Because, by the way, there's nobody listening to this who is going to say it's a small market. There's nobody listening to this who's going to say it's a market that really has plenty of solutions. There's no solutions out in the market today. And I do want to talk about that in a second. But there's also nobody else who's going to say, I don't think this is something we should pursue. Everybody wants this to be fixed. Everybody believes it's a huge market. Everybody wants this to be dealt with right now. But how big can you become here? Like, what can your users grow to? What's the end game? Is it about driving revenue? Is it about driving users? And if it's either, what does that look like on a future roadmap?
Well, let me start by saying when we were working on our pilot, we did experiment with international advertising, and we know that there is equally pent-up demand globally. I mean, we only advertised to countries that had a huge English-speaking populations, either as a primary language or second language, for adolescents.
Right.
So we know that what we have now can grow globally. At one point, I actually had top of mind that exact number, but it's huge. It's a huge number, and we can have an impact. But more importantly, we can actually start to take what we've done and go up into age groups. We're looking at, we're in the early stages of a college-focused solution.
Wow.
And we can easily start to go into young adults with what we have.
Incredible. And then so it can be grown into, huge. It's absolutely huge. And especially as you start moving it up, you kind of move to a more directly impactful space. And we've seen, by the way, with many apps that are looking at different types of different methodologies like BetterUp, have grown into billion-dollar companies in no time whatsoever, right? Doing very simple things by just providing access to folks that are specialists within this space. And many people like myself would say that actually the peer-to-peer solution, by building gamification into it, is far more effective because you're not getting advice or help or support from someone who's being paid money to be there for you. So I think all solutions have a place, but I particularly liked where you were coming from because I thought it's just very specifically focused to how these kids want to interact. But talk a little bit about the competition. So I want to finish us in two places. Number one, Let's talk about the competition. Let's talk about the future, what you're up against. Who are the ones that are going to be tough to get past? Who are the ones that are very easy? What does that entire sea look like? Is it a red ocean or blue ocean? And then finish us off with the powerful view into the future that you will have created. I'd like you to look back from 10 years in the future and speak to a world that exists only because of what you contributed to it. But let's start with the competition first.
Well, the majority of the companies out there trying to address the adolescent mental health market are still trying to pursue the traditional model of face-to-face therapy. And maybe the digitization of that is that it's telehealth instead of visiting a doctor's office. But we know that there's expected to be a shortage of therapists until 2050. So that is absolutely not a scalable solution.
No.
And there are lots of heavy hitters out there in the adult mental health wellness space that are trying to go target the market that we serve, but they're taking an adult solution and trying to force fit it onto a population that doesn't want to do more homework. And a lot of these solutions have a lot of kind of really structured journaling that just feels like in a homework assignment, and there's no fun to it. Yeah. So they're now having to go back and start from scratch and create a program for children where we started as a solution by and for children. And in our early product development days, we had lots of product concept testing with our target population to ensure that we were hitting that mark. Now, there was a lot of questions in there, but if I skip ahead to where we'll be in 10 years, my mission for the company is that we go from a society where it takes 3 years to recover, or rather 3 generations to recover from generational dysfunction, and that's only if they get therapy, that we're getting that down to 1 generation. Wow. That we will ultimately have raised healthier kids, where we stop having school shootings, where we stop having violence, where we stop the bullying, where most of all, we stop the suicides. And kids know how to be emotionally healthy and happy and raise emotionally healthy and happy children.
God bless you, Patrina. It's absolutely beautiful. And then how can everybody contact you?
I can be reached at Patrina at YouROK Apps, YouROK apps.com. And I'd love to hear from you. We're looking for partners on this journey.
Yeah, and I love that word, actually, just to finish it from my side. So this is not just about investment. When we put this podcast out, we're absolutely looking for partners. There's a lot of parents out there who unfortunately have been touched by mental health with their children, have been touched by suicide, have been touched by bullying, have been touched by just really feeling helpless as to what they do. The peer-to-peer network that you're building, the gamified network that you already have implemented and put in place is making an absolutely massive difference with these kids. And we want people from all walks of life to help. So if you want to invest money into it, wonderful. We'd love to arrange an appointment with Patrina. She'd be very happy to speak with you. If you want to give support, help, technology, if you have got access into healthcare systems, if you've got access into school districts, if you have access into PTAs, everybody can lend a hand here. So you can all contact Patrina. Now you can also contact myself at Brian at expertdojo.com. And Patrina, any other ways to contact you?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Awesome.
And then also by email as well. And then anybody who needs Patrina can also contact myself, as I said, at Brian at expertdojo.com. Congratulations on everything you've built. It's truly magnificent, and I couldn't be happier that we've invested in you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm thrilled to be part of this cohort.